On today's video, we're going to be going back and reviewing some past gear purchased and sales history. Today's topic of discussion, we're going to be looking at Chapman guitars. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, most of you guys, if you've clicked on this video, there's a good chance that you probably already know all about Chapman guitars. Maybe you've been a longtime viewer of Anderton's channel, Rob Chapman channel, and you've been thinking about getting one. You've seen some videos, you've probably heard some different discussions, surrounding the brand, all that kind of stuff. I'm assuming you've already got a pretty good grasp on the history of the brand, so I'm not really going to cover that so much in this video. My purpose here is really to just give you guys my firsthand experience owning 4 different Chapman guitars and just giving you all the kind of deep dive, sort of the geeky stuff, get a little bit more information about things that worked and didn't work within these guitars. So I hope you guys find this information helpful. As a longtime gear enthusiast, I always want to try to take the time to share some experiences if it helps you guys make decisions to maybe purchase something or perhaps continue looking for something else. Okay, so starting off with my very first Chapman guitar. This model was one of the OG Monkey Lord approved ML1s. This model was out of the World Music Korea factory. Pretty straightforward. This one had like a translucent black flame veneer, HSS configuration, maple neck, all that good stuff. My personal experience, I found that the overall quality craftsmanship being from that Korean factory was fairly decent, pretty good, as you guys might have heard in other past videos. I've really never had any problems with anything coming out of World Music Korea. So for an import guitar, I think it was fairly decent overall. So the single biggest issue with this particular guitar, which I'm sure you guys might have heard some similar discussions around this very early Chapman range, is, let me tell you, this guitar was one chunky piece of wood. This guitar was roughly around 9.5 pounds, which for me, just looking for like that basic sort of like modern, like S-type inspired guitar, way too heavy. Way too heavy. Now, I know we're going to get some people in the comments who are going to tell me about, how their 10-pound Les Paul is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Hey man, more power to you. If that works, great. Anything over 9 pounds, in my view, I would consider that to be a fairly heavy guitar, right? I mean, it's one thing if it's maybe a bass, right? But we're talking just a regular 6-string Strat type guitar. That's a little too much guitar for me. So again, if you agree or disagree with that, that's going to come down to your preference. But this ML1 was an absolute boat anchor. Even sitting down playing, I just found this instrument to be very uncomfortable. Beyond that, wasn't a huge fan of the neck shape. I felt like, again, just like a lot of other models, for kind of that modern Strat type, it was just a little bit too chunky, a very deep C. So not really my cup of tea. So I decided to just go ahead and return this one and send it on back. Okay, moving on to my next instrument from Chapman Guitars. This next model was an ML1 Pro Modern series. Obviously wanting to kind of pursue that sort of slimmer modern neck profile. This one definitely had a much more comfortable ergonomic shape, not nearly as chunky as like that super round C shape on the older model. Definitely a little bit better overall. Biggest disappointment really was actually on the finish on the side of the neck. For some strange reason, it definitely had some cosmetic defects on this one. I wasn't a huge fan of that. Even though it was bought in used condition, I mean, it was still fairly new, so I would still consider this to be some premature wear. In addition to the peeling issue on the side of the neck, I really was disappointed in the lack of forearm contour on the ML1 Pro Modern. Again, putting the emphasis on the word modern, if we're gonna use that type of language to categorize these guitars, I don't really think it makes sense to have a traditional model like the older style that has like a nice, like a natural bevel on the top, very comfortable contour, with the modern having like that hard edge on the side of the body, just not very comfortable, not something I would really expect from a modern guitar company. So I decided to send this one back, kind of disappointed overall on the second attempt for Chapman guitars. Okay, so moving on from there, some more time had passed, decided to give the brand another chance just to see if maybe, there's a possibility that there is some model out there that may fit my criteria and get the job done. I saw Z Sounds was running a sale on this ML1 Standard. I really liked the finish on this one. It definitely caught my eye. I believe it was called Red Sea, if I'm not mistaken, and you can see it was a kind of like a red to teal fade, which I always thought was very interesting. I knew with this Standard series coming out of that Indonesian factory, this was definitely going to be a bit of a dice roll, but I figured for 500 bucks, let's just give it a try and see what happens. got the guitar, and although I was fairly impressed with the color and the finish, man, we're talking some pretty serious quality control issues. I mean, the guitar was pretty much a train wreck. Horrible fretwork, very rough fret ends, a lot of imperfections overall. You could definitely see a huge difference in quality from the Indonesian version to the Korean-made version, and the guitar just overall was not well put together. I went ahead and submitted some photos, sent that over to Z Sounds, and they were pretty willing to take it back without any problems. So very, very disappointed. I would say out of all the different Chapmans I have tried, this was by far the worst quality. Now, at this particular point in time, last update I heard, I don't believe they're currently offering any of their standard series models from Chapman guitars. Perhaps they're just getting back to the drawing board and exploring other options for maybe different factories, different lines, different productions. I can't say for sure what all exactly is going on, but I'm pretty sure last time I heard they're not offering any of their standard series between now and the near future. With this specific example, having so many quality control issues, I mean, if that were me, if that were my name on the headstock, I mean, I would definitely pull the plug on that as well and just figure out a new game plan. So aside from the quality control issues with this ML1 Modern Standard, really, even if everything was executed correctly in terms of fit and finish, I just don't feel that, again, the specifications of this guitar reflect what a modern guitar should offer. Super, super deep, chunky C-shaped neck profile. Really wasn't a big fan of that. If you're looking for like that modern S-type guitar, you know, I'm looking for something that's gonna be like a little thinner, a little bit more manageable. I'm not looking for like that big old chunky baseball bat neck. So again, I feel like this is another huge miss from a marketing standpoint to implement these type of traditional specifications into what's called your modern series guitar. All right, so after moving on from that one, some more time had passed. One particular day I was browsing Reverb and I stumbled upon one of the OG Chapman ML3 Robia Baritone signature models. Now, me personally, I've always liked Robia's channel. I think he's done a great job. Very, very talented musician, definitely put out a lot of fantastic content over the years. Was looking for a baritone at the time and this one happened to pop up. A few specifications that really stood out to me with this model. Obviously baritone, that's a pretty cool feature. There's not that many 6-string baritones out there. This one had a Paduk neck, hip shot locking tuners, stainless steel frets, flame maple top, the whole 9 yards. So this one at the time was definitely going to be your highest spec Chapman. And I believe even when this model was originally released, maybe sometime around 2017, 2018, I think this was actually one of the most expensive Chapmans for its time. This one actually had pretty good quality, no issues on it. Again, this one came out of World Music Korea, so obviously far, far better than the Indonesian models from the Standard series. And this guitar was pretty good overall. Probably the biggest thing that stood out to me was just the feel and texture of the Paduk neck. This was my first time trying that type of neck wood, and I really was quite impressed with it. I found it to be very smooth feeling, very stable, felt nice, especially for that type of wood being more of an open grain. So really no complaints as far as the actual, selection of woods. Only real downside with this particular guitar, because it had a alder body with the Paduk neck, the alder body was fairly lightweight and the Paduk neck was obviously quite heavy neck wood. On top of that, because it also was a 28-inch baritone, didn't really balance super well, so it was a little bit of an issue just kind of having that neck dive, which this can be an issue, especially when you have that longer scale length. You've just got, more material away from the body. It's gonna obviously weigh that neck down. As far as the neck profile itself, I didn't really love it. As with many other Chapman guitars, I did feel like this one was perhaps a little bit on the chunkier side. Worth mentioning, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe the second rendition of the Robia baritones that had come out, they had Wenge necks instead of Paduk, and I believe they reprofiled them to be a little bit thinner as you kind of move up to the higher frets. So I think that was something that was revised to make them a little bit more comfortable. But again, this OG Paduk Robia Chapman baritone, a little bit too chunky, a little bit too much neck dive for me, so I decided that wasn't a good fit, and I ultimately parted ways with that guitar. Not that many floating around in circulation. I remember when I did find it for sale, I jumped on it just knowing that this was right around the time when Robia had separated from Chapman Guitars. I was working with Ernie Ball, which I know he does have a signature with Music Man at this point in time, which also looks like a pretty interesting, cool guitar. So not that many of these, decided to pick it up, give it a try. Kind of worth that last last effort, just trying to hopefully find something that suited my needs within the brand. So overall, guys, out of these 4 guitars, I would say definitely that OG Robia Pro Baritone model was definitely the best of the worst. That's kind of the way I would describe it. Really not super impressed with the brand overall. I definitely would love to see some improvements on these guitars in the future. Perhaps they will improve these manufacturing standards and have maybe some better specifications that might be more attractive to your modern progressive guitar guys. Now, I know Chapman Guitars has definitely had a fair share of controversy. I know there's been some drama over the years amongst discussions on the internet. My position is not to get involved with that. I'm just a guy who wants to find a guitar that I actually like and just kind of deep dive on some of these specs and really focus on more so the product itself as opposed to the name or the face behind it. So that pretty much concludes my overall thoughts on Chapman guitars. Again, having purchased and returned 4 models from both ranges. Very disappointing. I really hope that these guitars would have been better. I really wanted to like them, but as much as I tried, it just didn't quite work out. And for me, as a gear enthusiast, if it's not working out, it's either getting returned or it's getting sold. So be sure to share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Would love to hear your experiences if you've maybe perhaps purchased or sold, returned any Chapman guitars. Let me know how it worked out for you or maybe how it didn't work out. That's gonna wrap it up for this one, guys. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe for more. See you on the next one. Have a great day.